The woman who stole my electricity looked me dead in the face and said, "It's community property, sweetie. We all pay HOA fees," as she plugged her extension cord into my charger like she'd paid for the outlet with her charm. I stood there at 6 in the morning, coffee in my hand, watching my Tesla charger smoke a little and thinking, that is a bold way to steal. 4 months later, my bill had more than doubled, and the woman smiling at me like she'd done me a favor was the HOA president. My name's Samuel Diacroix, and 6 months before all this blew up, I was starting over messy divorce, a pocket full of lawyer bills, the kind of fresh start you buy with the last of your rational optimism. I'm an electrical systems engineer, which means I respect panels the way other people respect family heirlooms, and when I bought a modest colonial in Pinterest Estates, the first thing I did was upgrade every damn thing properly, new panel permits, inspections, the whole responsible, boring adult package. The crown jewel was a $2,800 level 2 charger. The satisfying click when it engaged felt like the small stupid therapy I deserved after everything else fell apart. Then I met Belinda Thornwick. Picture every internet Karen stereotype with a law degree and 7 terms as HOA president. The sort of woman who treats community rules like costume jewelry and wields a clipboard like a gavel. She lives in the mansion across the street, drives a gas-guzzling Escalade, and smiles the way someone who's used to getting her way smiles. What I didn't know, what I learned slowly, like peeling drywall, was how desperate she actually was. Husband, out-of-work mortgage payments, spiking appearances to maintain. Desperation makes people inventive, and in her case, inventive looked a lot like a thick orange extension cord running from my outlet to her workshop. At first it was petty, a bogus fine for not putting up fall decorations, a $200 notice that read like a revenge postcard. Then the numbers crept up, $240, $287, $347. And my engineer brain started to itch. I checked everything, appliances, heat pumps, smart thermostat logs. The math didn't care about my divorce or my sleep schedule. The meter read 1,420 kilowatt hours when I should have used about 950. So I went looking. Dawn and a flashlight revealed the orange snake across the street, snaking under mulch down the curb into Belinda's garage like a literal lifeline to somebody else's luxury. Imagine my surprise to find DeWalt saws and industrial sanders humming on my kilowatt hours while Belinda in designer athleisure fed crown molding into a table saw with the swagger of someone who thinks community standards are suggestions. When I walked up and held the cord like evidence, she shrugged the way only someone who runs a small kingdom can shrug. Community sharing, she called it. When I named the theft and asked her to stop, her face changed. Not the polite mask, something colder like a smile that had teeth. "If you want to play hardball with the HOA president, let's see how you handle a compliance audit," she said. That's when I realized I had poked a hornet's nest, and it had a law degree. 3 days later, the hornet took a swing, notices for unauthorized commercial activity, changing a cabin air filter, noise violations, running my garbage disposal, and absurd garden citations, each a $150 to $200 fine, and all signed. Maintaining excellence together, BT. The pattern was obvious. Once you stop being sleepy and start being methodical, retaliate, intimidate, squeeze. But in the Navy and in life, people who overplay their authority leave a trail. A mentor once told me, document everything. Bad faith always makes a map. So I built a map, timestamps, photos, decibel logs, lawn measurements, every legitimate thing the HOA could accuse me of, countered with proof. The escalation that made my blood run cold was technical and terrifying. One morning I followed an ozone smell and found a splice-neat professional hidden behind decorative bushes connecting thick copper wire to my main feed before the meter. That's not a backyard hack, that's a felony. Pre-meter theft is invisible to the utility company, and you can steal for years without anyone noticing. Whoever did that knew how to make it disappear from ordinary accounting. The craftsmanship told me one thing, whoever had wired that knew what they were doing. The location told me another, it traced right back to the Thornwick property. That's when Gerald, Belinda's husband, turned up at my door with a stack of papers, looking like a man whose life had been rearranged into an unsolvable equation. He'd found bills in Belinda's office showing their electricity averaging $47 a month while running workshops, and a hot tub numbers that didn't add up. And he'd found similar splice work behind other houses on Oak Street. What had started as petty theft was suddenly organized multiple houses' professional splice work, systematic siphoning. Gerald's hands shook as he asked what to do. I had already picked up the phone. Enter Jake Ramirez, an old Navy buddy, now working as a senior utility inspector, a guy who could read a transformer like a fortune teller reads palms. Jake explained the beauty of the new smart grid. Every device leaves a signature, and modern monitoring can trace anomalies through distribution patterns. Pre-meter theft still leaves digital fingerprints. If you know where to look, you can reconstruct where power flowed and, crucially, who benefited. We discovered the truly delicious twist together. Not only had Belinda stolen from me, she'd been stealing from the utility company and redistributing power to a network of locations that all fed into her property. This wasn't a lazy neighbor's shortcut. This was a criminal operation. 2 days before the inspection, I found Belinda in my yard at dawn watching me as if I were performance art. She blamed me flippantly then, with the casual cruelty of small power politics, threatened to frame me to point investigators at my own electrical work and hint that a divorced man with money problems had motive. She even showed me photos on her phone, timestamps, angles that made legitimate maintenance look sinister. Classic gaslight, classic bully, classic cornered predator. She offered me a deal: confess to unauthorized experiments, pay fines, take my lumps quietly, and she'd make the problem go away, or face a framed narrative that would bury me in legal fees and doubt. That's when the game shifted. While she was constructing a frame-up, we were building a case. Jake's monitoring could not only show that power was being siphoned, it could backtrack usage for up to 18 months. The utility company could lawfully rebill the actual consumer, and triple damages could apply for theft. We did the math. The potential adjusted bill ballooned from petty months of pilfered power into a six-figure humiliation. But the real pivot came when Jake and the federal team arrived with thermal cameras and began mapping my neighborhood. Belinda's house lit up like a Christmas tree, hotspots in the garage, attic, converted spaces, power patterns matching commercial grow operations. If you're keeping score of irony, here's where it lands. The woman who fined neighbors for unauthorized garden gnomes might have been running a commercial indoor garden, industrial lights, hydroponics, climate control, and powering it with stolen electricity. The DEA showed up. The smart grid traced flows. Federal inspectors smiled, the tiny, satisfied smile of people who've been waiting for such a story. Gerald's face when the investigators knocked on his door, that moment of dawning horror, was one of the few honestly human things in the whole mess. When federal audit results came back, they were surgical. They recalculated usage going back years, applied statutory penalties, and prepared an adjusted bill that read like poetic justice, with numbers: triple damages, federal fines, administrative penalties, an amount that would, by any sane reckoning, ruin the Thornwicks. I did not want to destroy a marriage. I wanted my electricity back and my neighbor's bills righted. But when a person builds their life on bullying and fraud, consequences tend to be unavoidable and public. Belinda's reaction was textbook desperation. She tried to intimidate me through lawyers who offered me 40,000 reasons to go quiet, a payout to muzzle testimony. They hinted at federal litigation that would bankrupt me even if I were right. They marched onto my porch like corporate sharks. They didn't realize they were committing witness intimidation in front of a man who records for a living. Their presence handed investigators additional charges. The universe can be a little theatrical that way. The climax happened at the HOA meeting. I'd prepared more than a PowerPoint. I had federal filings, splice photos, billing recalculations, sworn statements, and crucially, a neighborhood ready to listen. Patricia, a retired school administrator with a spine of steel, had mobilized the community. Devin, our social media whiz, live-streamed the whole thing. At 7 p.m., while Belinda stood at the podium, ready to publicly fine me for the very crimes she had committed, a federal courier delivered a certified envelope to her porch, the adjusted utility statement for $267,433.17. You could see the life drain out of her face through a camera feed and into dozens of neighborly phones in real time. I spoke slowly, clearly, the kind of calm that follows a very long, precise plan. I laid out the evidence. I explained the smart grids traced the thermal mapping, the forged complaints, the intimidation attempts. Gerald handed the certified envelope to the meeting. He stepped back from the wife he'd been unwittingly supporting in crime, exhausted and small in the face of what his life had become. The vote to remove Belinda was overwhelming. The community applauded like a choir. Justice tasted like paperwork and a crowd. In the aftermath, federal charges followed: utility theft, grid tampering, drug trafficking, witness intimidation. Gerald cooperated and received immunity. The house was listed and would not cover the legal and civil liabilities. But the real victory was Penarest Estates itself. We rewrote bylaws, instituted term limits, opened financial records, and started a transparency fund. The neighborhood refunded bogus fines, the utility corrected accounts, and we turned the community center into a place where people learn to protect themselves against petty tyrants. There's a lesson here that doesn't need to be framed as a lecture. It arrives the way real lessons do, as a small, sharp recognition when you're folding laundry or answering an email. Power is a tool. With the right checks, it builds. With the wrong ones, it corrupts. Systems, whether electrical or social, work best when they're transparent, when people with expertise help others instead of hiding behind authority. And if you mistreat your neighbors long enough, sometimes your own calculus fails you. The metrics that hide crime also eventually reveal it. 9 months later, life settled into a better hum. My monthly bill read $180 again. Patricia and I started seeing each other properly, slowly, cautiously, like two people who'd rebuilt trust from the rubble of HOA tyranny. Devon's live stream had gone viral, and the story sparked reform requests from other communities. I even got a letter from Belinda, written from prison, blaming me for everything. It was a thin thing full of rationalizations. I kept it on the kitchen counter for a week, read it once, then recycled it. Some people never admit where the fault lines run. So what do you think? Was this justice or overreach? Is the court of public opinion a necessary correction when local power corrupts? Or does it risk turning every neighborhood spat into a spectacle? If you've ever had a neighbor who crossed a line, or an HOA that felt like an overbearing employer, tell me, how did you handle it? Share your story. Below, vote in the comments. Was I right to push this all the way, or should some battles stay private? Either way, if you've ever been tempted to let a bully keep borrowing what's yours, remember, document call. Someone who knows how to read the wires, and if needed, let transparency do its work.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video. Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.